Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast, 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and I am so excited to be back with 49ers team reporter Lindsay Polares and catching up with the podcast. While we've been away, Lindsay took a trip to Lucas Oil Stadium for the NFL Scouting Combine, which actually just wrapped up yesterday. So Lindsay, how was your trip?
It was short, but I think very effective. We covered a lot of ground in about a day and a half. If you haven't checked it out already, please go to 49ers.com or the 49ers YouTube. We had a one-on-one with General Manager John Lynch covering various topics that are relevant to the 49ers during the offseason, a little bit about the scouting combine, just how the landscape has changed a little bit this year because the 49ers finally have a first-round draft pick for the first time since that 2021 draft. So it's a little bit of a different pick breakdown for the 49ers to be working with, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, we also got to talk with some NFL draft experts, some of the 49ers beat reporters that made the trip out to Indy. It's crazy. The offseason seemed really short. I know we're technically in the off season, but things are still happening, and that gap between Super Bowl and the start of the Combine seemed just that much shorter because of the extended playoff run. But yeah, there's a lot of buzz around the 49ers again, so same old, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, isn't it wild to think that the Super Bowl and the Combine happened in the same month?
Yeah.
The month of February? It feels like two different worlds. But yeah, it's awesome. John Lynch always shares great information from the organization during his Combine trips. And like you said, there are some changes that have been made since the 2023 season ended, including Assistant General Manager Adam Peters leaving to the Washington Commanders to be their general manager. But what did Lynch have to say about the direction the Niners went in promoting both Tariq Ahmad and Gillen to fill in at that position?
Yeah, I think the one thing that Lynch really emphasized is that the front office and their approach to the combine and scouting and, soon to be the draft, it's just such a collaborative effort. That being said, like you mentioned, with the departure of Adam Peters to the Washington Commanders, there are some front office promotions. So Tariq Ahmad and Gillen, Ahmad was formerly the director of college scouting, and then Gillen, the director of pro personnel. They've actually both earned the same title, and Lynch was pretty intentional about saying that they aren't co-directors of player personnel. They're both individually directors of player personnel, and he said that was because both of these men respectively earned the title on their own, so they're on level playing ground, and they are going to be working together to essentially fill the duties, responsibilities that were once occupied by Adam Peters. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really great move. These are people that have been within the front office for a very long time, very familiar with the organization, its processes, and they had a lot of time with Adam Peters and John Lynch, so it's kind of just like a plug and play. They've both had really large roles, especially during this time. Speaking about Tariq Ahmad, as the former director of college scouting, the Combine is maybe something like a Super Bowl for him because he's definitely, obviously, scouting talent from a year-round perspective, but definitely get to have all of the top prospects in one spot when you get them all together in Indy.
Yeah, it's great that they're so familiar with the organization because it's going to take a team effort to evaluate all the talent at the Combine. And at the Combine, it's time to look at the next generation of talent and finding which players are the best fit for the team. And this year, the Niners are going to be in on the action a bit earlier than in years past with that first-round selection. So does having that first-round pick influence the team's scouting process any differently?
Yeah, so that was the same question that I asked John Lynch during our one-on-one, and I really liked his answer, and it was pretty short and sweet and concise. No, it really doesn't change the approach. He does say that it does give you a little bit more to do on day one. I just remember even our experience from the marketing side last year during the draft. It's a lot of waiting. Obviously, in that war room, there's always, phones ringing, potential deals to be had. But at the end of the day, the 49ers didn't have a day one pick. They ended up not trading to the first round during that 2023 NFL draft. That will not be the case for right now. The 49ers are slated to pick at 31st overall. So if all stays equal and on the track that it is right now, there's going to be a new person added on that very first day of the draft. So that's exciting. Like I mentioned earlier, the 49ers haven't made a first round draft pick since that 2021 draft, when they actually moved up to select Trey Lance at number 3 overall. So it's been a minute, and I know that that's definitely got the faithful really excited.
Yeah, super excited to see what happens on day 1 this time around. But while at the Combine, did John Lynch share what he looks for when he's evaluating prospects, or just what his meetings are like with the athletes?
Yeah, so I think in terms of like specific traits, no, nothing super specific, but I did speak to him and ask him, what is the most valuable piece of information that you take away from the Combine? Because essentially you've got some of the top talent from college football all in one place. You see them go through various amounts of interviews, medical testing, on the field drills. And he said the medical information is obviously a really high premium. You want to make sure that the people that you're selecting and bringing into your organization are set up from a physical standpoint to be successful. But the 49ers and, really the rest of the clubs around the NFL, I think, do place a certain amount of importance on those 15-minute interviews that they get with prospects. John Lynch mentioned that in that time they try to be effective and efficient because it really isn't that much time, but they want to find out, that scouting department. They want to know what makes that person tick. Will they fit in this organization, and do they embody what the 49ers are and the type of team that they're trying to build? And when you think about it, that is a lot to squeeze in 15 minutes.
I hear John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan talk about that 49ers spirit. Do they follow the 49ers way? So it's interesting how they go about that. And like you said, 15, 20 minutes. But another thing that's really cool about the Combine is pretty much all of the teams and all of the experts from around the league gather in one spot to preview the season ahead. So who are some people that you caught up with to talk about the Niners' approach to this year's draft?
Yeah, it was, everyone from beat writers to NFL draft experts. I thought one of the most enlightening conversations that I had and just like wealth of knowledge that I was given was actually with Ryan Wilson, who is the senior draft analyst for CBS Sports. And he pretty much could rattle off every prospect's name, incredibly in tune with the next generation of college football players that are looking to be in the NFL, and not very long. I asked him specifically, when you look at the Niners situation, giving their deep playoff run, and some of the free agents that are set to hit the market next week, which is crazy. Free agency period is right around the corner. What the 49ers should maybe be zeroing in on. And he identified a couple areas that I think were pretty consistent across the board. For one, he was talking about the offensive line, especially given the talent of this incoming draft class. It seems that there are it's a pretty deep class in terms of guys in the trenches. So offensive line is one place he was saying to look to start. Also, for cornerbacks, looking to add another piece, a depth piece to that secondary would be incredibly beneficial. Obviously, the 49ers did have to shuffle around a little bit because of injuries during the 2023 season. Talanoa Hufanga is expected to be back, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Tashawn Gibson Sr., set to be a free agent, but then you've got Jair Brown, so he was like, all right, safeties kind of look set. But adding, again, to that cornerback room could be good. You've got Diamador Lenore, Charvarius Ward, Ambry Thomas. Depth is always a good thing. The 49ers added Logan Ryan late. So anytime you can get some fresh talent specifically in that group, it's always good. And John Lynch also mentioned in one of his availabilities that, that's a group that always needs to be adding consistently with the talent. So that's a couple areas there. And then we had some of our 49ers beat reporters, I think it was Matt Barros of The Athletic, who was telling me that, you've got this generational talent in Nick Bosa, but you really do need an edge rusher that will complement him on the other side. Mm-hmm. And particularly with the defensive linemen, a lot of them are set to enter free agency. You think of Randy Gregory, Chase Young, just to name a couple. So the 49ers are going to probably have to think about the guys in the trenches and then maybe adding a little bit of depth to that secondary.
Especially when the D-line is the forefront of their defense. Mm-hmm. It's what they put their most emphasis on. So this year, the San Francisco 49ers are set to make 11 picks picks spread out between rounds 1 through 7, and I'm excited to see what's to come there. But now the combine is said and done, and the next biggest date in that NFL offseason calendar is the new league year and the start of the free agency period, which you said is just a week away. So what are some things the faithful should be expecting during this time?
I always think expect the 49ers to make some kind of moves, right? Because I think last offseason everyone thought 49ers were going to be quiet during the free agency period.
It's going to be chill in Santa Clara.
It's going to be chill. That was not the case at all. I think we started it off with a really big deal, a 4-year deal for Javon Hargrave, and no one really expected that. So that was quite a way to kick things off. The 49ers certainly have needs. One thing that a lot of the draft experts and the beat reporters said, it's like you're looking for depth pieces rather than foundational pieces. The 49ers are fortunate to have a lot of the big playmakers coming back, but there certainly are gaps and depth to be wary of, and I'm sure they're going to address those needs via free agency and the draft. But free agency is first, and it's quite literally a week from today, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, big times coming. But in the planning for the upcoming season, contract talks also come up. And one of the biggest stories the media is going to be tracking during this time is what's going to happen with wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. He's coming off another amazing season, headed into his 5th year. So what did John Lynch have to say about the team's outlook on BA?
Yeah, so Lynch really just echoed what he's been saying really since the 2023 season, the end of this season, that Brandon Aiyuk is one of those foundational pieces that you talk about, and he's someone that's really highly regarded in the locker room, around the organization. He referred to him as a competitor, a warrior. He said he's a really physical player, just incredibly skilled in every aspect of his game, and I think you've seen throughout the course of his time here him just continuing to blossom into this top wide receiver talent. And that's certainly, the 49ers are very cognizant of that. Lynch was very complimentary of him. And he says he's contributed so much to the franchise. So I know there's a ton of mutual respect there. Contract talks will be contract talks. We've got an entire off season to track it, but that's where the 49ers are right now. They're, incredibly enthusiastic about Brandon Aiyuk, and we'll see what comes of that as the offseason progresses.
All right. Well, we'll be tracking the free agency period and all that comes with it during this offseason, so make sure to follow First and 10 on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Turn on the notifications so you're in the know when we post any breaking news updates, and thank you, Faithful, for tuning in.